Welcome to episode number 1 of Others from Another Mother. My name is Dan Cleary.
My name is Chad Shlosser.
And we have been friends for, maybe close to 10 years? We've been acquaintances for and closer over the last maybe handful of years.
Yeah, I would say so. About 10
feel
years.
like. And we came to realize over the last year or two that we both have this mutual fascination, love, respect for UFOs and all things space and happenings and underwater and who knows what's going on. But we've been talking about doing this for a long time, and I'm happy that we're finally here.
I'm very happy to be here.
What got you involved in all this? Where did your fascination begin? I want to kind of get into why we're doing this.
Yeah, I love it. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, up in the San Juan Islands, and I just remember I spent a lot of time in nature and under a lot of stars, and I guess I always just had a curious mind. Really started delving in, when we each had access to computers and the internet for the first time in our teens. We're still part of that generation that didn't have that. And I just was very open to the extent of the idea of the universe and its possibilities and what life is and just all the big questions, and always been chasing it down ever since. And the whole UFO thing has always just piqued my interest because it's it's proof that the world is way more than what humankind has thought it's been up until this point in history.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot to investigate, so I'm glad that we have endless things to talk about because I want to cover it all. I love the UAP stuff. I love the personal power of our brains and what's happening these days in tech and biohacking and the potential of living forever. I want to talk about that and our evolution and how maybe all this comes together, the whole current UAP phenomenon with what we're learning about ourselves, and we're escalating our own evolution in front of our very own eyes, very rapidly,
so quickly and faster than ever it seems now. And also, I'm excited to do this with you because you also have quite a bit of a science background, and you can come at this from a lot of a science side that I can't really do
amateur
as well. Amateur, sure.
Disclaimer, but yes,
you've done some really cool things that I want to get into at some point.
Yeah.
This guy talks to plants. I mean, this is amazing.
I listen to him.
You listen to him.
Yeah, I don't.
They talk back, but you don't know what they're saying.
No idea.
But fascinating shit. Did you have any people in your family that were interested in this kind of stuff?
It's funny. I honestly haven't. I have 2 older sisters, and we've never really tapped into this. I've spoken about it with my mom, and my mom's father, my grandpa, who's an artist, and he's very open to just ideas and just loves talking about the important stuff, the deep stuff, the universal stuff. And so that was kind of it. But more recently, both my sisters have expressed, a lot of interest. I just even yesterday had lunch with my sister, and we dove right into just AI and, the human experience and how it's evolving so quickly right now and what we're going to tap into.
Right.
So, yeah, that was it. But now, I've really enjoyed being in the entertainment industry my whole life. And as I know you have, and that's given me opportunity to have these conversations with a lot of interesting people, and a lot of these interesting people that we've been fortunate enough to work with over our careers, they have a unique access to a lot of other interesting people that tend to. I
was just saying. So what do you do for a living? So let people know kind of what you kind of do for a living. What do you do in the entertainment industry? Because that's kind of part of our mission statement is what we're trying to do here.
Right. I've been a studio engineer and songwriter and music producer for close to 20 years. Mm-hmm. So a lot of bands, a lot of artists. And through that, other random projects that have gotten me in touch with, great individuals that I've learned a lot from.
Yeah.
And, I really found that people in this industry tend to have a very unique view and more creative and open-minded view of a lot of this stuff. I think it's the creative brain also gives us access to imagination, which to think about a lot of this stuff requires imagination.
Yeah, bringing walls down, things that usually limit what we think is possible. Because from a young age, I think a lot of people are taught that things are impossible. But someone said that things are only impossible. Impossible only means something you haven't seen done yet or haven't seen proven.
Truly.
But there's a lot that we can learn. What do you? Yeah.
No, let's hear a little bit about you. Now that I just
Oh, sure.
babbled on for a bit, but
Yeah. I've been a guitar tech for some big bands for the last 20 years, and I've had a few podcasts. I've done radio with Dave Navarro for close to 10 years, and like you said, doing this stuff, it's amazing the kind of situations we end up in, the people that we end up in the room with.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to be with. Often it's other actors or musicians or stuff like that, but every now and then it's like politicians or military folks or people that have lives so different from ours. But let me know if you found this. I feel like that if you get like a high-ranking military official in a room with Billy Gibbons or Ozzy Osbourne or something,
Right.
they have a crazy job where they have information that we wouldn't believe, but they're with a rock star that they've known their whole lives.
Yeah.
And I have been blown away by the kind of conversations that I've either been a fly on the wall for or been directly involved in with those type. I'm not saying I've talked to generals, but the kind of people that we get in the rooms with is sometimes fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the things that people talk about when they loosen up, or even sometimes, like, I don't know, want to impress someone. I don't know, but I feel fortunate. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah. So I think what we're trying to do with this show, there's some really, really great UFO focused podcasts out there. Some really great ones that we can't do better than those people. But I think that we have the ability to bring in some different voices, hopefully over the course of this show. And I want to speak to some of the main folks in ufology as well, and paranormal, or people that are into remote viewing and astral projection, which you and I are also fascinated by.
Yeah.
But I would like you and I to get some musicians and people on the creative side of entertainment, actors, directors, producers, and just get some different kind of people talking about this subject, because it seems more accessible for the masses and more digestible than ever before. So that's a good time to do it.
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just adding on to that, I think it's a really good time in general for a podcast like this that will not have too many limits on anything, really. Well, no limits, but it's just a timely manner right now.
Yeah,
I think so. It's I'm excited to see how all of our favorite things that we've been fascinated about kind of come to one point right now, and maybe they're all related.
Since I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old, UFOs have been far and away my favorite subject of my life. And when I remember elementary school, there was like maybe 2 or 3 like books from the 60s and 70s that were like in my elementary school library. And those were like the only books I checked out. I check out the same books over and over again, and like read and stare at these pictures where, I mean, some of these pictures may have been fake. I don't know, but just this subject has riveted me since I was a kid. There was this book. I have a book. This book right here. Time put out this series of books called Mysteries of the Unknown. Do you remember these books?
I don't. You just showed that to me. When?
So this came out 88, I think, or maybe 86. But they put out a series of books. 87 this came out. It was like maybe 10, 12 books. One was on ghosts. One was on UFOs. I think there might be one on like the pyramids, but just mysteries of the world. And this book, that image alone, just like captured it for me.
It's timeless.
Why do we love this so much? For you, like what about the idea of UFOs? Not even the idea. Like, we know that we're also starting the show. We're not going to try to talk about whether these things exist. Like, we know
Good
this.
point.
Okay, so we're never going to have the talk of like, do we think this is like, it's real?
Yes.
This has been acknowledged by governments around the world. I've had my own experiences. Have you seen anything or had any kind of experiences where
Other than a lightning ball? No, I have not.
A lightning ball.
I saw a lightning ball in Central California off of I-5. That's the only thing that I could not explain at the time until did some further research, and then a report came out and like, oh, okay.
It was lightning.
They said it's a lightning ball, and it's actually like a natural phenomena. So it's one of those ones. I'm like, damn it.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was so close.
Yep.
But yeah, what you just asked me about,
Like, why do we love it? What
why
what
do
is
we
it?
love it? When I think of like what the biggest question is that I want answered is why, and just why is like that. You can extrapolate that forever and talk about everything. Talk about like, do we have souls? Like, what's the limit of the universe? Obviously, there's stuff out there,
Yeah.
and now obviously it's here as well. Whether it's interdimensional or if it's from somewhere else, we'll tap into that too.
So many possibilities.
Yeah, there's just an endless sea of subjects, but all kind of interconnected, that I'm really excited to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the idea of us just dealing with us for the rest of existence is so boring and sad to me. Since I was little, I was just like, obviously there's stuff elsewhere, but like I've always felt that there's something here, and something that probably has been here before us, and it's just so riveting. I'm excited to get into this kind of stuff. If you could answer one question, like what's the question that you want answered more than all others? You can only ask one. You'll get the true answer. What do you want to find out as we're on this journey?
Well, I guess like it's tough. Like I'd like to ask one question and give the answer now, but I'm afraid that in 5 years we're going to find out.
What's that
already.
question? I'll give you a couple questions.
What happens after we die? The age old
course.
question. Like, are we bodies with a soul? Or are we just bodies and we just decompose and like our brains shut off and that's it? Is consciousness limited to our physical body? That's, I guess, what I'd like to know, but I feel like we're on the verge of figuring that out. And that might explain a whole lot of things. And like, what we're going to tap into, it's like, are humans stepping into like the next dimension, the next phase of our evolution, like right before our eyes, like during this, like,
You just
exact
gave me
period.
goosebumps. Yeah, I know, it's so crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's wild. And what's another question?
I guess, why is it all here?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know more than anything. I mean, let's also understand it's most likely that we're dealing with multiple different entities or beings or creations or what. I don't think it's all one thing, but I do want to know intent. I want to know, what is the point? Are you studying?
Yeah.
Are we an experiment? Are we a farm? Are we a goddamn food source? People like Lou Elizondo, who you and I are both pretty up on. He poses that, are they prepping the battlefield to, not to be much of a battle, but like to take this beautiful planet? Like last night I was watching. Our friend made a show about the national parks. It's on National Geographic, and it's kind of like that David Attenborough kind of seeing animals in the wild and showing the beauty of this planet. And I'm watching it and just thinking, yeah, I would want this for myself too. Like if I was cruising around and stumbled upon this like incredible planet that is just teeming with life, with these beautiful mountains and rainforests and oceans and deserts and these weird monkeys that are us, that can communicate and play baseball and make movies and make music and kill each other. Like it's a riveting place to come check out.
It's an amazing show for an outsider.
Exactly. As Jeremy Corbell says, like it's the best show on TV, the best entertainment you could possibly have. But I want to know what the end game is. It's exciting. It's scary, depending on the mindset that you're in. But regardless, I want to know the truth of whatever that is.
Right.
And hopefully by talking to some people, we'll get some different insights. But yeah, I'm stoked about it. Have you, what was your growing up? Were there any movies that turned you on to this, that were movies that really got you into this?
I mean, obviously the classics, E.T.
Yeah.
Just like
That was the first movie I saw in the theater.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, Close Encounters I didn't get to see until like, late teens. But that changed things for me too, and it was like a beautiful perspective of it. And then obviously growing up, like we saw the whole thing from evil aliens to kind aliens.
Of course.
And
I mean, the
everything in
movie
between.
Alien, we got Fire in the Sky, we got
Fire in the Sky,
The
good
Fourth
one.
Kind, those kind of movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna go Close Encounters as well for my number one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a far cry from Independence Day.
A little bit, which is, I mean, it's interesting. It's a fun movie, and also like it's also a possibility. I mean, we are the general public. I think we really have, for the most part, have no idea as to what's going on.
Yeah, that's what I would love to find out. Also, like there's like these really big questions, but then there's also I have like in the meantime I have these short term ones. Like I just want to find out like, okay, who in our government or at part of some secret black ops program or something actually knows this answer already.
Of course.
And he's just going home and eating Hot Pockets and just like holding on to this secret.
That's it.
He's probably not eating Hot Pockets, but
You never know.
hey,
People are people.
but yeah.
Do you have a favorite case? A favorite like UFO case in history?
More recently, like the Brazilian story,
Varginha?
Varginha. Thank you.
So good.
Wild.
Did you see the film?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. Anyone's listening, hopefully you've seen it. The James Fox, who is the guy that directed The Phenomenon and Out of the Blue. He's a new one coming out called The Program, which is about the crash retrieval, reverse engineering stuff, which comes out, I mean, hopefully the next couple months. But he made a movie called Moment of Contact, which is about this case. And what's the case you're speaking of? What's the details?
There was it's a mass sighting, but it included like biologics, like creatures that people saw that 3 women can like totally account for, and it was terrifying. And you hear a lot of different stories of different interactions that people have had, but this one like actually they were like genuinely terrified.
Yeah,
of like this really terrifying little creature. So like that's just like the shocking one.
yeah.
But then more
With a lot of evidence, and a lot of evidence for that one. A lot of eyewitness,
Right.
Military accounts. I mean, it was talked about in the town. This happened in 1996. So this is not like old school stuff. This is like,
yeah.
I was 16 years old. I mean, this is like pretty recent in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And that one had a police officer in that town allegedly just got out of his car and grabbed one of these little beings, just scooped him up like he's just a regular perpetrator, threw him in the back of a cop car, and that police officer ended up dying
Right.
2 or 3 days later due to some horrendous infection.
Yeah.
And supposedly a lot of these, the autopsy of some of those beings are videotaped and are somewhere.
Right.
Are somewhere.
I love in the first episode, we actually like already are talking about like physical alien encounters, like things that like even 5-10 years ago, I would be nervous talking about on a podcast.
Yeah, of course.
But the stigma is like dissolving.
Of course. And
And it's the best thing ever. And that's something that I think we should really touch on throughout the whole thing. It's
Please.
just like, just because like, we're even able to, we've already had like preemptive talks with some of our friends in the industry that might want to come on and talk about this.
Yeah.
And like, you couldn't imagine any of these guys doing this just a few years ago. And
it's still going to be difficult to get some of them. I mean, there's I think musicians are a little bit easier depending on that. Maybe the genre of music makes it a little bit easier, which is interesting. Like I wonder, it'd probably be easier to get someone from Guar to come in here than it would to get Michael Bublé. Although I'll take either one. I mean, I would love to talk to Michael Bublé.
Absolutely.
If you're listening and you believe in aliens and UFOs, come chat with us. But the stigma thing is interesting.
yeah.
Because you and I, like I said, we know each other for a long time. And only I think in the last year or two,
Yeah.
one of us made a passing comment at a part. Like we're around each other multiple times a year for like some big parties or events or concerts.
Yeah.
And one of us made a passing comment.
Don't remember
I forget what it was, but I remember being like, "Oh,
You know about that?
Chad knows this stuff." And we started doing like a little like back and forth about like a little bit of knowledge, and it was kind of like a toe to toe. Like I might have found my mutual.
Yes.
I might have found my UFO life partner. It's so exciting.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah, but I think I'm with you. I've spent a lot of my life, trying to have these conversations with with friends and family, and it usually doesn't go anywhere. Historically, it's like a
Are you seeing that evolve at all? Is it getting
yes.
easier? Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Oh, big time.
I feel like I've noticed that for sure. And I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, like I said, since I was 8 or 9 years old, I've loved this. And for most of my life, it's just something that you like, oh, don't bring that up. Like, no one wants to talk about it. Or it's like a cute, oh, Dan's, he's into UFOs. Isn't that adorable kind of stuff. But over the last 7-8 years since that, famous New York Times article about ATIP, OSAP, and the Pentagon videos that were released, it has made it a lot easier to have these conversations and gotten a lot of conversations of like, dude, you've been talking about this your whole life. It's real. I'm like, yeah, no shit.
It's one of those conspiracies that's actually getting proven.
Right.
One of those rare ones.
Have you talked to your family or like a family friends? Are you opening up your conversation with people?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you and I have a mutual friend.
Yes, I was actually just about to mention him.
Go for it.
Who, the classic like hard nut to crack with this type of stuff.
Best dude in the world. Incredibly smart
friend,
man.
Incredibly smart, intelligent man that, that might have just like, what I thought would have brushed it off, but,
Which he did for a while.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple times when you and I kind of started talking about it, and there was that little bit of like that side smirk.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of a grin. But luckily,
no longer.
He's someone who is like, okay, just,
Show me.
I don't know about it. Yeah, talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Show me something. Let me read something. And
great time we have stuff to show people now that they're like, oh.
People coming around.
That's Congress discussing this. It's not just like conspiracy theorists like talking in a room.
So, yeah, we're recording this right now in the middle of October.
2024.
2024. A month from yesterday, a month from now, November 13th is supposed to be the next congressional hearings. And I am thrilled, and I'm considering flying to D.C. to maybe try to get in the room to see some of this stuff.
Wow.
Did you watch the David Grush
Oh, yeah.
congressional hearings last year?
Absolutely did.
What were your thoughts when you were watching something of that magnitude?
My first thought that comes to mind isn't actually when I was watching it. It was like after the fact when like it didn't shake this nation enough to like wake everybody up.
It blew my mind.
Like it's the most important thing that humans can talk about. Like Christopher Hitchens always said, it's the only conversation worth having.
Who said that?
Christopher Hitchens. He's like a great old, atheist author, brilliant master of the English language. It's like, why didn't it make more ripples?
It blows my mind. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, like, I think like the stigma is still very much present, but like I said earlier, it's dissolving, and like this is a great step for it. But I think people just naturally tune out. A lot of like, people who don't think too extensively, like, unlike us who are obsessed with this stuff, it's like kind of like a passing thought sometimes. They have like their lives that they're living, and it's like they don't think too deeply on this stuff. And I get it. It's probably a very peaceful life, unlike me who can't sleep at night. But yeah, I think just the more it's going to be present, the better.
Yeah,
it was incredible though. I mean, for me, shocking, incredible testimony, legitimate, from somebody I put my faith in, and then
David Grush and David Grush, Dave Fravor, and Ryan Graves,
yes.
All testified under oath. And by the way, they requested to be under oath. Initially, they weren't supposed to be under oath, but they all kind of insisted, we want this to be under oath, which should say something to you.
It should say something just who they are already.
Top Gun fighter pilots, like true mavericks from Top Gun that are out there being like, this thing outpaced us, we couldn't touch this. And that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We still don't have anything like that today.
Right.
And someone like David Grush, 17-year intelligence officer, former Air Force, a guy who would help prepare the daily security briefings for the president. When someone like that, who did a 4-year investigation into these like hidden programs, tells you, we have craft, we have bodies, it's being lied about, there's misappropriation of funds, information being held from Congress. Like, this is earth-shattering information that still is like not covered as much as it should be by big papers and big media people. And like you said, I still don't know how it wasn't all people were talking about. I understand that we have a passion for it, but
Well, it's got to be intentional by the media and whatnot. I mean, like, if you're running a media company, you should know that this is a very big story. But are they doing it for our, like our as in society's like our own safety? So like we don't have mass hysteria.
that's the argument. That's the argument, right?
Is it, or is it? I mean, it's creeping out. Like, it was nice to see Lou Elizondo actually like doing some very big appearances.
Absolutely.
And I hope he does more because Lou Elizondo is another, similar to David Grush, whistleblower and an unbelievable patriot of the country that has a resume that shouldn't deter anybody.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the things that he's talking about, it's like the most important things that have happened in human history.
In human history. I personally feel like it is the biggest story in human history. Did you read Lou's book?
I listened to the Audible. Yes, and it was amazing. And he did a great job reading it. Oh, very nice.
Imminent by Lou Elizondo. Incredible book. Goes into so much detail, more than he has publicly in most of his previous interviews. But this is a book is a must read or must listen to anyone who wants to know, to get up to speed quickly on what's going on.
Very well done.
Fascinating stuff. He'd be fun to talk to you about.
Some shocking disclosures in there that I wasn't aware of.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really a great read. Or listen.
In that book, he talks a little bit about remote viewing as well, which is something that you have interest in.
Of course. Every human should have interest in that.
Let people know, if they don't know, the basics of what remote viewing is.
Basics of remote viewing is like having a particular person that can meditate and basically remote view. It's simple as that. A missile silo in Russia, and they can actually like read numbers on the sides of buildings and actually like get visual contact through meditation of places on the other side of the earth. And this is well documented. It's a study that was done by our government, and it's public knowledge now. Yeah. And it's like they've actually released that. And so
it's a provable, somewhat repeatable skill.
Yeah. And it was interesting that he mentioned like a lot of the remote viewers, like successful remote viewers that they brought in were like Cherokee Nation.
Yes, that fascinated me.
Yeah.
Again, another overlooked part of that book.
It's beautiful.
Do you have any Native American blood in you?
I do not know.
I do, and I wish that part would get more active because I want to know more about this kind of stuff. I have some Sioux Indian in there.
Oh, very nice.
But that was a really I had forgotten that until you just mentioned it. That you did touch on that.
Yeah, a lot of little moments. I actually found myself going back and like re-listening to chapters.
What could that be about? What the hell could that be about?
I think that their society was like just way more advanced, like with their meditation and like their.
Well, would society, or would that be something in the bloodline that would give you that ability more, or is it just a way of thinking? It's a fascinating question.
It's a fascinating question,
which I'm sure has been studied that we don't know about. I imagine it's been deep dove.
If Lou Elizondo mentioned it in his book, I would say they must have.
Yeah, you're right.
He wouldn't, bother the time mentioning that unless that was at least somewhat substantiated.
I want to correct you on one thing. You did say that remote viewing, you could take your consciousness anywhere on the other side of the world. Apparently, you can go anywhere you want. The universe. There's no. You're bound by nothing.
That just, gosh, that's so bizarre. Because I was even thinking in my head just now, just because I'm not fully aware. Like, did they have to look at a map in Russia and then like they just go there? Like, how did they?
I'm so happy you asked that.
Pick destinations.
This is a question that I want because I am someone. I don't know about you. I have absolutely zero sense of direction. I have no idea like where I'm at all times. I don't know directions.
Yeah.
I have to use Google Maps or Apple Maps if I go like 5 miles from here. But a lot of remote viewing, you're given coordinates. Like someone gives you coordinates. Do you have to know where that is? Like, do you have to coordinates and look on a map to see where that is?
We're gonna have to find.
Or does your inner whatever, just no coordinates.
I mean, coordinates are man-made.
Right. So how does that work? Now I feel like we're Beavis and Butthead.
Oh my God.
How's it work? Astral.
First episode. Stumped.
There we go. There we go.
I'm going to be stumped every episode.
But how does that work? You're right. Do you have to have a sense of direction to know what
do you
you're
actually
reviewing?
like travel to that place, or you just
Pop up there?
yeah?
Have you tried it before?
Not remote viewing now.
Okay.
I mean, it seems like that's another thing that just seems like so far fetched. Like, why would I even try that?
But you talk to someone, you talk to people who are like some of the best remote viewers in the world. Joe McMoneagle, he's one of the big guys who's still alive. And, Hal Puthoff was a big part of researching remote viewing back in the day. And these guys say it's a very teachable skill that almost anybody can do, which again, how little of our brains are we using?
Well, that's what I'm excited to talk about and see unfold over the next several years is our understanding of the brain and like how we're going to potentially access more of it and utilize more of it.
And did we use more maybe 1,000 years ago? Did we use our brain more? Like, is that like when talking about Native Americans
Sure.
or people like that around the world, Egyptians, sure. Did those people have a more innate ability just to kind of tap into that without, like, we live in a world now where, I mean, in this room, there's 500 distractions from what we're talking about. Like, there's just, everywhere we look, there's bright lights, or we're hearing motorcycles, we're hearing dogs barking, we're hearing music, there's TVs playing, we have AirPods in. Are we just not tuned in to life? I mean, obviously we're not tuned into life as much.
Well, it's amazing what our brains can interpret and like block out.
Right.
And that is just another one of those big questions of physics and like, why are we here? Why are we this? How are we interacting like this? Like there's photons literally flying from every angle, but I can choose the ones that are coming at me from you, bouncing off you. Like,
right.
I want to get into all that stuff.
The brain.
Yeah.
The brain. I remember learning like last year, I think, when, like a lot of people on motorcycles or bicycles are hit by cars. That happens quite a bit.
Sure.
So our brains give us natural blind spots, and because we can't take in, when we're driving, like we just can't take in all the information. So our brains are looking for 2 headlights, 2 taillights. So when someone's on a bicycle with 1 reflector or a motorcycle with 1 light, our brain sometimes just literally will not let us see it because that's not what we're looking for.
Wow.
The brain's like, we're looking for 2 lights.
Interesting.
So people will rear end to someone on a motorcycle because they didn't see them, and like, didn't you see me? No, I didn't. My brain literally didn't see you.
And here's another question now, talking about the brain. Is it going to evolve as fast as our technology is going to evolve?
No.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
That's why I think we're maybe seeing even like depression and a lot of, social anxiety and other mental health issues right now is because we're being inundated with information at a pace that our brains can't keep up with. That, we're not evolving as fast as our society and technology.
You just said something that gave me a thought for the first time. When you think about people like, how old are you? I'm 44.
I'm 41.
Okay. So people like our dads who are probably somewhat recently going through like retirement or whatever, you see something in older people where they do get depressed because like maybe they're not working anymore, and so they're not contributing to society in that way. But then also the older you get, the faster it feels like life is or things are changing. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of like old depressed people because they can't keep up with what's going on. But now you're saying that younger people are now showing signs of more and more depression. Maybe we are feeling what our elders have felt for 100 years, because our lives are speeding up faster than we can even keep up with.
Right.
So maybe we're at an earlier age, we're starting to feel more and more obsolete quicker.
Well, and then we've also seen the entire span of things. I feel like we're going to be remembered as a generation that kind of like saw the quickest uptick of at least like from, dead stopped to hauling ass.
Like we clearly remember no internet. Like most of
no phones, complete digital disconnection.
The most of my childhood was no internet, no cell phones, no nothing.
Analog.
And now I truly can't imagine a world that like I don't have this device that has the answer to every question in the world is 2 seconds away.
Yeah.
That's overwhelming. That's a lot of power to have. And then earlier you and I were talking before we started about the use of the term like AI ascension. What did you mean by that? About how society feels like we're getting close to like a rebirth or something?
I mean, I guess it's a combination of what I've heard people say and then just my own thoughts of how fast things are moving right now and how rapidly things are going to change. And I think, the human experience is going to drastically change just in general. Like our, the idea of a life as a human is going to dramatically change within our lifetimes.
What kind of ways?
That's great questions. But I mean, technologically, but then also I feel like, we're on a quick path to a lot of people losing a lot of jobs, and there's going to be a lot of depressed people, sad people not knowing what to do at the time. Like we were talking about earlier, like if this is like in some way a part of our natural evolution is to delve into AI and connect with it. And like, this is actually like in a weird way, a part of our evolution going into tech, like kind of removing ourselves even from biology and going into the digital world in a way somehow. I think we're going to see a lot of that happening in the next couple decades. I don't know. It's just going to be everything. It's, what won't it affect? We saw the difference of not having the internet to having the internet. It's incredibly dramatic. Like we use it all day, every day. It's everything, but it's not to the effect of affecting every single aspect of our lives where AI will. Like we're not going to have to drive or, we don't know the trajectory because we're like, I get shocked as things unfold. Like we were talking about the music production software, how it just is a million times better in 3 months.
I mean, I think we decided that the song we use for this show, we settled upon this song that I used, that I created using AI.
Yeah.
I wrote all the lyrics and just put it into a program. And I said, use these lyrics. And I want to sound, synthy and kind of, dark synthwave. And 15 seconds later, it shot out the theme song to this show. And we work in music.
I'm glad we're tangenting into this, actually.
Good.
It's a good
Let's talk
part.
about it.
From like the creative angle. Like, we're both musicians. Like, how are you grappling with the fact that like this is coming in and it's unstoppable? Do you feel like, art is still very safe? You think it's going to change?
It's weird. Like, I don't think art is necessarily safe. And also, who's to say that AI music is not art? It is. We didn't make it. Like, if I'm a fan of Nine Inch Nails, I didn't make that music, but I still love the art. Why can't the computer be the artist that we like? I mean, yeah, there's a lot more at stake. You can't go see your computer play songs live yet. Maybe in 5 years, I'm like, I'm gonna go to the Crypto Center in downtown LA and watch Michael Jackson perform the theme song for our show. I mean, that could happen in no time.
Yeah.
So there's the argument that who's to say it's not art, but yes, it takes it out of the hands of like people going in. You sort of run a studio or you've ran recording studios for the better part of your adult life.
Yes.
And you live in recording studios.
I've made my entire living making songs.
Right. So you've also been around to the point, like, it used to be when we were kids, if you wanted to record your band, you'd buy a Tascam 488, 8-track and make these horrible things. You have to you record in half speed. You have to bounce it down to, it was a crazy process. Now you can get a brand new laptop, get an interface to plug in a guitar, and you can make an entire album on your own.
Yep.
Now that's good and that's bad because
Exactly.
It makes everyone think that they can just be a superstar. but sometimes it works. So I don't know what the point I was trying to make was, but it's just amazing how quickly we're seeing it affect what we do for a living.
Yes. But I do like how I think what you were touching on there is like it's allowing accessibility for a lot more people to create as well.
Right. Right.
Which I think is beautiful. I want more people to create. I wish everybody had the pleasure of being an artist, and I think everybody has it in them. Some people claim they don't, but everybody has it in them. I think even that's like the core of Rick Rubin's new book. It's like everybody's an artist. You just got to dig it out of you somehow.
Well, think about when we're little kids, like finger painting with our whole class.
Yeah,
everyone makes
everybody
different
did.
things. That's all a little bit different. Most of it sucks, but it's also beautiful because someone made it. But I think that music, especially with AI, I think it's going to be. I think a lot of people are just going to completely embrace. Give me a playlist. I want to hear, 71 minutes of techno for this drive I'm about to go on, and it'll just start playing. It'll make it for you on the fly.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be almost like an underground scene of like, nah, man, like we still make music, like we record to tape, and like, whoa, really? Like, how do you record? Where do you record to tape? I think it'll be like its own genre of music.
Yeah.
It'll be like human music.
For sure.
Like it'll be almost like a niche at some point of like it's like the way Jack White. So right now everyone records digitally. You have Pro Tools. That's what you do.
98% of the time you're either in the computer or on an old tape machine.
Yep. And sometimes you'll get a good take and you'll just copy it and loop that take. Sometimes some people prefer to do everyone has their own styles.
Of course,
right?
And that's what makes it art.
But then you have someone like Jack White from the White Stripes, who over the last 15, 20 years is like, no, I'm gonna record the way Elvis did.
Yeah.
So I do think that in 10 years, when everyone's doing AI music, there'll be people like Jack White doing it the old school way of like writing a song.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of like things in general are still going to exist as far as like those human interactive experiences that, even like sex, what sex is going to be later on. Like
robot technology is getting to a point where it's, the Tesla robots were just kind of debuted recently. Did you see those things?
Yeah.
Like they move fluid, like the head movements, like they have it down. Once you're able to have, whether you're a man or woman, you want to get like a hot male robot or a hot female robot or a both robot, whatever. When you can like program in dial in the own personality that you want to have and certain tasks you want to have, what will that do to relationships? Or will a new kink be, my kink is that I do it with humans?
Or is our evolution going to happen so fast that like the new generations don't even see sex as an analog thing anymore between two biological humans? Or what if we go even further and that like, nobody decides to have kids anymore because like the microplastics problems you were talking about, people are being
born sterile.
sterile.
Like a crazy amount of people being born sterile nowadays.
But at the same time, we've figured out how to live forever.
Which you have a little bit more insight on than I do. We don't have to get into some names, but you find yourself often with people in the science side of things.
Yeah.
And what kind of stuff are you learning about?
Well, I guess like since we're doing intros and everything, I have like a slight bit of a background in more of it. I'll just call it an interest, a very dedicated interest in the sciences, specifically like the electromagnetic spectrum. Richard Feynman was one of my heroes, who's like a famous physicist and teacher. Check him out. Like he's amazing. Richard Feynman, just look him up on YouTube. Like I think he has a documentary called The Pleasure of Finding Things Out.
Is he on OnlyFans? That's where I get all my information.
Well, I'm sure somebody's made an AI version of him on OnlyFans.
Soon enough. Yeah. And don't sell yourself short. You have a pretty good science mind.
Yeah, so I've always had an interest in things, and then also naturally working in music and being a sound engineer. Audio was a very important part of my life, and so I took a left turn at one point about a decade ago, and I started studying bioacoustics, which is the actual. In my field, I was studying bioacoustics off of plants and like the actual acoustic emittance that they put out, very low energy sound that you can pick up with ultrasound microphones. And I'm sure you've seen, the videos online, and there's guys, all hooking up the sensors to it. We're able to hear things. But my thought was like, okay, is there a functional use for recording this? Like, is there a language that they're emitting? Like
Patterns.
Yeah, like when they're going through different stress patterns or whatever. Like if they're going through a drought, do they make a certain frequency click, pop?
And what did you find?
And we found out, yes, like it's consistent. And, we can actually utilize this data, especially now driven with AI. Like we can actually analyze data from all over just so quickly to see patterns when we put plants through different stresses. So like if a plant is, being infested and whatnot, we can get notified of that remotely because we know what
Fascinating
that plant is emitting. And then there's other aspects of it, like how, like in flowering plants, certain flowers can sense when bees are nearby. Like the vibration of the bees trigger the plant to release sweeter pollen to attract the bee to it. And so like I just like kind of dove into that whole world of like, the invisible stuff to us, the electromagnetic spectrum, the part of it where it's invisible to us. And I've always been curious, like, okay, we have this range in the human experience of what we can see and smell and hear.
Yeah.
Well, at least, hear and see. But there's so much more to it. And that's just another one of those big questions. Like it all ties in together.
I was about to say,
the invisible part of the world, it exists,
The fact that plants and flowers make sound has to tie into the overall bigness of everything somehow. Yeah. There's no way it doesn't.
I'll take this tangent back down to the original point, but I was always very interested in how the world works. I am also very curious as to how like technology is going to, in a positive way, interfere with biology, and like how we can utilize it for the best, and like how some of these people that are out there right now that are doing some pretty incredible biohacking methods and working on reversing aging and ending aging altogether,
which we've heard from a few different people that we might possibly be there.
We might be that generation that has an option to either dramatically extend life or, unless you're involved in an accident, live forever.
I've heard a couple people say with the utmost confidence that the first person that will live to be 200, 250 years old is already born now.
I believe it, yeah.
You believe that too?
I think so. At least if what I'm reading is true.
Do you understand what we're saying? Like what you're saying?
I know, that's why it's time to have a podcast, because all of these things are just happening so quick. And if you're not paying attention, like a lot of information is flying by us. Even while we're sitting here, we're missing out on some huge technological feat because it's happening every moment of every day now.
And you and I have been talking about doing this for I feel like close to a year.
Yeah.
Close to a year. And every week that goes by, I'm like, oh man, we just missed a good story. We missed something. But we're starting now. And by the time this comes out, we'll have missed another story that we'll have to cover next time. But we're living in a wild time, and what AI could end up doing for finding patterns in UFOs, UAPs, if there's biological materials collected, putting that through AI to figure out how these beings operate, how they breathe, what are they made up of, and doing that in such an instantaneous amount of time.
Yeah.
Having a database is just, we're living in wild times.
Yeah. I don't think we ever asked, but like you've had personal experiences. Do you want to share?
Sure.
Sure. At least in a nutshell, that just like where your interest really came from.
Well, I think all of us when we were kids feel like we saw a light in the sky. And I remember seeing one in the parking lot when I was a kid with my mom that was like, at the time, shocked me, but now with my adult brain, it probably was a plane or something. When I was 16, my girlfriend's father, 15 or 16, my girlfriend's father was giving me a ride home at night, and I saw it was probably 10 o'clock at night, a clear as a bell triangle craft over the music store in my hometown. Perfect triangle, very, very dark. It had a light in each corner of the triangle, and these diagonal slat like lights between the lights, between the circle lights.
Okay.
It was either yellow lights in the corners with these blue diagonal slat lights, or blue. I think it was yellow lights with blue slats. But I saw that very, very clear for I don't know, 5-6 seconds, which really is a long time to see something.
So they eased you into it. Yeah, that was
They took their time.
pretty dramatic.
Sure. But,
first encounter. Holy shit.
but my biggest one, which I didn't expect to tell today, but I'll tell it today. Why not? So again, lifelong fan of the subject. Grew up, with the Bob Lazar stories, which I'm pretty much in the boat of, like, I believe the majority of the Bob Lazar story. I don't know where you're at with Bob Lazar.
I want to believe him, of course. Yeah.
Wanting to and believing are two different things. But
Indeed.
yeah.
Indeed. Just because, like, science mind.
Sure.
Leave everything open to interpretation. I want to remove the stigma.
Yep.
But yeah. Anyway, if you want to, like, give a quick blurb on Bob Lazar and who he was.
I mean, he was the guy who claimed to work at a thing called S4, a site at Area 51 where he worked on a recovered UFO called the Sport Model, and he saw a bunch of craft. He possibly saw bodies. Came forward in, I think, 1989. George Knapp did a story on Bob Lazar. That's how we all know him. So Bob Lazar was not one of the first, because there were guys before him that came forward. People at Roswell came forward, but
Right.
Bob Lazar just caught a lot of publicity in the late 80s. So I was into that. Always into UFOs, and on June 5th of 2023, that's when the David Grush article came out in the debrief. First time we heard his name. First time we heard his story about, recovered craft, reverse engineering programs, recovered bodies, possible agreements between maybe U.S. government and beings. Mind-blowing stuff, but stuff that has been told in the core story for forever. So that story came out on June 5th, 2023, and the Grush thing just completely reignited this fire in me, where I felt like a kid again, where I'm like, I'm back in deep diving. I'm going back and watching all these when YouTube first started. I remember I would spend 6, 7, 8 hours a night sometimes in the early 2000s, just watching all these old YouTube UFO videos and people that, I was abducted. A lot of it was bullshit. I believe in abductions, by the way. I'm not saying that abductions are bullshit. But this Grush story, anyway, it ignited this fire in me. June 5th. 5 days later, my wife and I went to a comedy show in San Diego. We live in Los Angeles, by the way.
Yes.
And I went to a comedy show in San Diego. Bad Friends, it's a podcast that just guys that we love. Went and saw that. Drove home, June 10th. We get home. I'm hungry for some food. She wants to go to bed. So I go to a diner in LA called Bob's Big Boy. It's like a burger place. And I'm eating by myself, listening to UFO podcasts. I'm sober. I've never been drunk in my life. I don't drink. I do edibles here and there, but I was clear-minded, listening to these podcasts. And I don't know if you know this. You probably know this, but historically, people talk about how consciousness is a big part of the UFO mystery. That maybe these beings can even fly the craft with their consciousness. That abductions might even be our consciousness being taken, maybe not even our bodies. People that do connect with beings or whatever they are, you can do it through meditation and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
CE5,
Yes.
Or HICE, human-initiated contact events. So I've never done that before. My wife is a big-time meditator. You meditate a lot, which I didn't know until today, actually. So I went and sat in my car at Bob's Big Boy in the parking lot at midnight, 1 a.m, and I'm like, I'm going to try this out. So I didn't know what I was doing. I also know I've read many times that intention is a big part of contact. Like, what is your intention? Why are you doing this? Like, basically your heart has to be in the right place.
Right.
So I sitting in my car, my eyes are closed, and I can only put it as like I was thinking into the universe, if that makes sense. Like I was almost imagining my thoughts going out, covering the universe. I think I was even talking out loud, basically saying, if there's something out there that can hear me, that's intelligent and kind, I would like to connect. I would like to see you. I would like to learn. I would like to get knowledge. I mean, this is like hippie kind of stuff that is not usually my personality,
Sure.
but I'm open to it. And I truly like in that moment, like my heart and my mind were open to this happening. I think I'm doing this for 5 minutes. And dude, I swear to you, I heard a voice speak into the middle of my head. Telepathy, which is what talked about quite a bit. And something told me it wasn't my voice. It was like a masculine type voice, but I didn't recognize it. But I didn't hear it with my ears. I heard it in the middle of my head. It told me to open my eyes and look to the right. So I did that, open my eyes, look up in the sky to the right, and right in front of me, I watched a craft for, I don't know, that's all I can call it, a craft materialize right in front of me. The way in old television when you turn it on and that kind of white snow kind of flickers in.
Wow.
This thing flickered into existence across the street, and I saw it.
It was that close. Like,
right across the street.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, if you walk out my front door and look across the street in the sky, that's where it was. It was right across the street.
Wow.
And it flickered in. It was I can't even explain the shape. It didn't really have a shape to it, but it was like a white light that was like sort of in focus, but not quite, almost like it wasn't fully here, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. But I watched it for 2 minutes and like it barely moved. It didn't fly into place. It didn't fly away. After 2 minutes, it disappeared. It flickered out the way it flickered in, just kind of like turned off. And it was one of the most transformative moments of my life. One of the most important moments of my life.
Incredible.
And I have thought differently about most things since then.
Naturally. I would think so.
Yeah, and my wife and I, like we get along great. We talk about everything. Like there's no secrets. She's open to this subject. She puts up with me talking about it all the time. She watches some of the stuff with me. I didn't tell her for 3 weeks about this. Yeah. It felt like something that was like it sounds lame, but it was like a gift for me.
Yeah.
Like it's something that was given to me. And this is over a year ago. And I've tried to do it again since, and I haven't got anything since. But it was a turning point for my life.
Did you get any like type of like, well, I guess, yeah, of course it's a turning point, but was it what other people might consider like a religious type of experience? Or was it just like more just like this is information about our natural world?
It didn't feel like a religious thing. I'm not a religious person. Okay. I grew up in a Catholic household, but I've never believed.
Sure.
But I think I find myself I am maybe spiritual. I mean, I'm open to whatever, but more and more and more, I'm getting more into the subject. My aperture is just opening as far as like the tie-in of religion or the possibility that there might be something bigger than us that I'm open. I mean, I want to discuss with you, like, are we a created species? Are we is this a planet seeded by something? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Were we put here? Were we brought here? I don't know. But I'm open to finding out. Like you said, nothing's off the table until it's like eliminated as a possibility.
Exactly.
So everything's open. We're going to get into a lot of stuff on here.
Yeah, we are.
But yeah, it didn't feel religious to me, but it did feel like, Dan, this is for you.
Wow.
And then 3 weeks later, her and I were watching, Leslie Kane had a really great UFO series. I think it's on Hulu. We were watching that, and there was something that kind of was relevant in that moment, and I paused it. I said to my wife, I need to tell you something. I'm nervous to tell you because it sounds crazy, but I want to tell you what happened to me. And it was like the first time I felt like shy with her in a long time.
Wow.
And she heard it, and she's like, I believe you. And that's all that made me feel good.
Amazing.
But our friend group, I didn't tell our friend group for months because not everyone's on board with this kind of stuff.
Because the stigma.
Historically, you can scare people away by telling people these stories. You can lose your job back in the day. If you worked at a corporation and you told the CEO that you summoned a UFO, you are unemployed.
The pilots that just spoke to Congress,
there you go.
They were at the risk of being grounded, because they would be considered crazy.
Sure. I mean, airlines nowadays, you know, it used to be very, very frowned upon to report sightings if you're an airline pilot. If you work for American Airlines and you see a craft, you better keep your mouth shut because you'll be grounded and you'll lose your pilot's license because people will think that you're crazy.
Yeah.
But now there's reporting centers. I have a friend of mine who works for air traffic control. I'll just say somewhere in the Midwest.
Okay.
And he hits me up every time there's a UFO report. And I'll tell you, he hits me up a lot.
Wow.
And again, these are pilots who know how to identify airplanes. They know how to identify ball lightning or weird atmospheric anomalies. Maybe not all of them. I'm sure some atmospheric stuff is misidentified.
Yeah.
But he's telling me stories about these pilots talking about these craft that are a few thousand feet above their plane, running like racetrack patterns. So as the plane's flying through the sky, these things are just doing these huge looping racetrack patterns over their plane for an hour, for 2 hours. Multiple lights or single lights they'll see that become three lights that split apart and become three different things. And this stuff is happening, every day all over the world.
Yeah.
You know, I hear from this guy once a month, maybe sometimes two times a month. One time he hit about 3 times in a week. There was 3 sightings in a week from these pilots. This is air traffic control. So there's again, we're past the point of like, is this real? But like, we just got to figure out what it is
And why it's happening more and more frequently.
Where do you stand religiously, and do you see any kind of tie-in?
I've done like the big curve from like went to church as a youngster, but always knew that it just didn't resonate.
Yep.
And I went down like the deep hole of, hardcore atheism and like thinking like this is it. Actually like a good portion of my life, I honestly thought that, that we don't have bodies, we are bodies. And like when the lights go out, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Void of soul, I guess. But the more experiences that I have and more I'm even just learning about our natural world, which is like kind of like the point of, I guess, atheism in a way is, not settling, but like keep asking questions and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. No blind faith.
No blind faith. But yeah, I'm beginning to see, there's obviously more going on. And whether or not like the lights go out for us, I'm not too sure, but I feel like that there's more interconnectivity and more potential, whether it's with our biological selves or spiritual selves or whatever. I think there's a lot more potential for us to tap into that we're very quickly like within reach of.
Do you believe in a soul? Simple answer.
Simple answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm right there with you.
I don't know.
If you asked me 5 years ago, I'd be like, no. Like it's dirt. Like when we're done, it's lights out. It's over.
Yeah, and then where does the soul go? What's the point? And then like it goes back to like, what's the point of all this? Like why would I have a soul? Like does that mean my dog has a soul too? And like at what point in our evolutional timetable did we get injected with souls?
Right. And you have the best dog in the world. Your dog you have a famous dog amongst our friend group as well. And when he goes, does his soul go back into the soul of another dog where he'll be the best dog in someone else's friend group in a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Or is it the heaven and hell thing, or just heaven and no hell, where like all these souls are just constantly getting packed in? Like,
I can't deal with it.
Ah.
It's those existential things that it's really hard to wrap your head around. There's one thing that this subject is never short on, and that's questions. It's so fascinating, dude.
It's the last frontier.
Right.
It's like and I love that it's pulling in. I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's pulling in all these different things into one. We're finding out like a lot of these very rapidly evolving bits of technology or information or how things work. Everything's coming together. I mean, like that's I guess why they're calling it the singularity in a way.
Right.
Coming up because it's all going to be connected soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to expose that question. I mean, wouldn't we love to know? We'll
right.
see.
You're a well-versed person in the Ray Kurzweil world, right?
Yeah. Relatively, yeah.
What is his year for singularity?
What was it?
Was
like
it 2040 something?
I thought maybe like 2039. Oh no, maybe I don't
It's
remember.
so unbelievably
But
soon.
very soon.
Ray Kurzweil, if you guys are unfamiliar, Google this guy. What's the basic background of him? Like, he was a futurist, which is just someone
futurist and inventor, but he actually he created like the flatbed scanner. Okay. He made Kurzweil pianos, like you see Stevie Wonder playing Kurzweil pianos.
Dude, the Kurzweil K2000, the biggest keyboard for Nine Inch Nails in the early days.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, their live keyboard.
Nice.
Sure, yeah.
That's a good little tidbit. I like that. We got to inject those every once in a while.
Of course,
too.
we are music guys.
We are music guys, and it'll become more and more apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was I saying?
Who Ray Kurzweil was, and why are we talking about him right now?
He's predicted a lot of things correctly, like timetable wise, like the internet and certain crashes, and it's he uses
the housing crash and
he uses his core thing is like kind of like the exponential, like everything is growing exponentially. Everything it used to be a population, not so much anymore, but like our technological pace is growing exponentially. And that's what he bases, I think, a lot of his things off of. And he's able to map out ahead on a timetable how things are going to land and when. And he's been extraordinarily accurate.
What has he missed on? Do you know what stuff he's missed on?
I'm not sure. I'm not too sure.
Because go ahead.
Oh, so I was also going to say like he's actually, get on to your point, because the other thing about him goes somewhere else.
I was going to say that the things, the Kurzweil-isms that we're looking forward to are nanobot technology by the mid 2030s, I think, where we'll have basically injectable, maybe microscopic robots, sort of, right? Is that what nanobots would be?
Yeah.
Where they're in our system, inside of our bodies, fixing ailments, fixing illnesses, getting rid of cancers. That's the aging thing. Working on anti-aging, reverse aging. He also talks about, by the mid 2030s, most human beings on Earth living in some sort of augmented reality, where whether it's goggles or probably at that point be a direct brain Neuralink type thing, where if we still have jobs, which again we have so much to talk about, but people will be living in these like fantasy worlds, like Ready Player One kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I could see happening.
I can see happening. I can see like the type of population that would totally do that. Would be my cup of tea.
Yep. It'll make the UFO job a lot easier. Less people to hide from, because we'll all just be inside on our headsets, just detached from the entire world.
And all this is only as long as we survive through tomorrow.
Right. And pretty soon
it could all end at any moment.
Soon AI can make our entire podcast for us. We don't have to do any work whatsoever.
Yeah.
What was the other Ray Kurzweil thing you were mentioning?
It was actually about like biohacking, that type of stuff. Like he swallows 100 pills a day, and he has like a regiment, and not as strict as some other ones that we were talking about earlier, but he thought that he might be part of the generation that could at least dramatically extend his life. But another one of his goals was to bring his dead father back to life and things like that. So it's a wild ride these next couple decades.
Yeah. And hopefully, we're happy to have you guys here listening. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. Hopefully next show we'll have a first of many guests. But we definitely want to bring a different voice to this field. And while we do that, support all the people that are doing all the hard work for our whole lifetimes, and new people. There's some people on YouTube and podcasts that are just doing such great work. And we're happy to join the battle and help in any way that we can.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it, Chad.
Thanks so much, Dan.
All right. This has been Others from Another Mother, and we'll be back next time.
Next time.
All right. See ya.
They are others from another